Welcome to the Future is Freelance podcast for solopreneurs, digital nomads, slowmads, consultants, remote workers, e-residents, and people living a life without traditional boundaries. We're here for everyone who defies categorization and makes a living and a life their own way. Every other Freelance Friday, we're serving up an audio cocktail of expert tips, inspired insights, and stories from the frontiers of freelancing to help you achieve success with your borderless business, whatever success means to you as you live life on your own terms. Thanks for listening to The Future is Freelance and for being part of the Future of Work revolution. Welcome, and a short intro today because we've got an interview that speaks for itself, but I wanted to go a bit deeper actually on one of the things I touched on last week about how having a really unique niche can help you build an extremely successful freelance solopreneur business, and having a global marketplace can help you do just that. Today's example, Dominic, is a content creator who has achieved this, and here's his story. Let's go. So, Dominic, welcome to The Future is Freelance. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be on. Wonderful to receive an invite on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm looking forward to diving into all of the work that you're doing in the freelance space at the moment. But you're now the CEO and founder of UC Marketing. But I'd love to know how you got to doing what you're doing right now. Can you tell us a bit about your journey professionally?
Yes, so I'm incredibly niche. I'm kind of niche within a niche. Gone as far as possible, as I know you've spoken about on your podcast. I started my career as the person pressing the buttons, kind of order management, provisioning type person for phone lines and broadband. Then the company I worked for started doing a bit of VoIP, which has accelerated to become unified comms, collaboration tools, things like Microsoft Teams, Zoom, SharePoint was all kind of filtered into my world as I went from entry-level provisioning coordinator up to running a team of other provisioning coordinators, project management of large orders, escalations manager, which became product manager, pre-sales consultant type person, which is where I started doing some writing for the company I was working for at the time. Discovered then that actually I didn't hate marketing and learned that content marketing was a viable channel for businesses. Started doing a little bit of content marketing for the company I was working for at the time. Did a little bit of kind of guest blogging for other publications that were out there, not knowing really that a freelance marketing career was a possibility. But then people started to come to me and said they liked my work and could I do similar? That then snowballed really. And one day I had 40 hours of full-time work and 40 hours worth of freelance work as well. So that felt like the right time to flick the switch and go, hey, I'm already making a success of this freelance content marketing thing. Why not ditch the full-time job? So I took the leap, and 5.5 years on, here we are.
Excellent. So yeah, similar time frame to me actually, but you do get to a point where something's got to give, as you say, and that transition. Some people leap earlier and take the chance on the freelance life coming together, but you clearly got to the stage where you were building them up in parallel. So that transition must have felt almost like easing into it and getting rid of the biggest client.
Yeah, literally, I got to the tipping point where I was probably Monday, Tuesday, I was traveling to see customers as a typical business consultant, really, staying over one night, going to see another customer in the similar region, then coming home. So I had that free evening where rather than just going down to dinner, watching the football if it was on and doing nothing with my time, I could fill it with freelance work and it didn't feel like I was burning out or anything like that. And then Saturday mornings, I used to have this wonderful, lovely shed that I used to go and work in on a Saturday morning and just write an article for one client who was paying me £100 for one article. And it just felt like an extension, and I guess an extension of my work, but also I enjoyed it more than what I was doing 9 to 5 because I was writing up everything that I'd learned that week or the technology that I'd seen for the first time, and it was just enjoyable, right? So that was the catalyst, I guess, and then that snowballed, like I said, and it was easy to just transition and pull the trigger because I already had those clients in place. It wasn't really in my head to ever take the one freelance bit of work I was doing and try and get to full-time freelance. But as it happened, it became more obvious that this would make me more autonomous. I would have more freedom in my work-life balance. I would probably be happier. So 5 years on, my gamble has paid off.
Excellent. No, that's a really inspiring story, and it's one that everybody who's thinking about this kind of transition, have I got enough freelance work to support me? Is it the right thing? There are so many factors that are important there, including the fact that you found you were enjoying the writing more than the day job. I think a lot of us come to writing that way. Sometimes I think, or almost this suits. Yeah. Will somebody pay me to do this? Because it's quite fun and quite easy compared to client work.
There's the trade-off, isn't there? I've always enjoyed writing of some sort. Like I would do creative writing by hand and think, hey, this would be great if I could be an author or something like that. That would be wonderful. At school, I always wanted to be a football journalist if I couldn't be a footballer because I liked writing. English was always my favorite subject outside of PE. And then I did English language at college,
right? Where
really, I don't think I learned anything, but I had a great time because I was writing a lot.
Yeah.
Which probably, sorry to my teacher, but it was great fun, but I didn't learn anything. And then I continued that enjoyment of writing outside of my day job, but there is always the trade-off of, is anyone going to pay me for this? And it wasn't until I discovered that content marketing was an actual working concept that paid the bill, because I've come from a generation where a blog was just somebody updating their website and you followed them if they're interesting, to this really strong, clear route to ROI inbound marketing machine that you'd be silly not to use today. Yes. So I've gone through that, and as I've learned what that actually is, it's become a career for me.
Yeah, I suppose it's relatively recently that people could actually measure that ROI and realize the benefits of outsourcing it, because yes, everybody knew you had to have a blog on your website, and that was important to show updated content and you still existed and things like that. But yeah, I remember when I first thought about writing for a living, the only option really was copywriting and learning to write to sell in a very direct sort of end of funnel way. And the revelation that you could actually do something much more narrative, much more interesting, was wow. Okay, I remember that feeling too.
It's where I feel that I could add my expertise rather than writing some sales copy, some website copy, something like that. The actual narrative is the right word, isn't it? It's the production of something using all my knowledge and expertise that I've gained. It's what gives me enjoyment, and it's also what can make my now clients money, right? If they can demonstrate authority on a topic, why would they not use the person that is most qualified to do so and has the skill set to communicate that? If you package the two together, you get me within my very unique bubble, right? And I think that's why I enjoy it, and that's why my career is, I guess, lucrative is probably the right word, isn't it? Yeah. It's not as if I'm going from day to day going, will I ever get another customer? I know that my next customer is going to be probably a systems integrator or a competitor of somebody I've written for before, or it might be someone I've already got on LinkedIn because they're following me. They can actively see the quality of my content, and I share the results of that content, be it a graph, number of signups, conversions, whatever it is. I know that as long as I keep doing that, the same types of customer will keep coming back because I'm a specialist in that one bespoke area.
Yeah. So if you had to describe that niche in an elevator journey, how would you define it?
Yeah, so it depends on who was in the elevator with me. If it was someone in the industry, it's quite easy what I do, right? I'm a freelance content marketer for Unified Comms and Contact Center. But that's the point where normal people will say, well, what's Unified Comms? And I might use the words digital collaboration tools, and people go, oh, right, like Zoom and Slack and SharePoint, which the answer is, yeah, you got it. Yeah. But us in industry folk kind of label it Unified Comms, and Contact Center really is how you contact customer support. Sales teams used to just make a phone call, but now it's online, automated, web chat, social media, et cetera, et cetera. So all these different pieces have fallen into the industry that I specialize in. So it's not even like it's just writing about phones or just writing about messaging. It's all of these different things that fall into this one segment of communications technology.
So it's a very narrow niche, but it's very deep. It feels like quite bottomless sometimes.
Yeah. And to become a subject matter expert across the board, it's taken me 15 years to confidently say, well, I can definitely do that for this amount of money.
Yeah.
I can command my rate because I'm confident in my ability and expertise within that industry.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was to do this 15 years ago, I wouldn't be able to win that specific customer over somebody else that had that experience. And that's where I see a lot of freelancers ask me the question, how could I have got in with this customer? And my first question is probably, what have you tried so far? But the second is, what makes you more qualified than the person that got it? And if the answer is, well, I'm not, the next step needs to be, well, you need to find some parameters to what you're applying for so that you can be that best person in the category that is an obvious hire for that particular job, gig, project, whatever it might be.
Yes, you need to find some way of demonstrating that, highlighting it, proving it socially or in numbers or some other way, and make yourself the obvious choice and make sure that niche exists. Have you ever had any issues in terms of the sheer narrowness of your niche with competition? And you said that one of your next clients might well be a competitor of somebody you're already writing for. Has that ever been problematic?
Only once, I think, has it been even mentioned. I wouldn't say it was problematic. Once it was mentioned, although lots of people ask me this because people are worried that if they become so niche, so hyper-focused on one area, will the competitors, or will the competition run out? Will the pool of clients cease to exist? The answer is no in any industry, really. You're never going to go that narrow. There's not going to be one industry or subset of an industry or craft where only two companies exist and one won't hire you because you used to work for somebody else. That there's no industry in the world really like that. And if that is, that's a poor choice. The one time it did happen, there was a online publication, more of a magazine type. Yeah, I guess you'd call them a magazine. They were already ranking high for lots of contact center key phrases, and they wanted me to come and write some content that ranked them higher. Basically wanted me to do some content refreshes. Had seen that I'd written similar content for one of the vendors that pays them for, I think, ad space or advertorial content, something like that. And they wanted to know if I was still working with them because one of the key phrases that was ranking above theirs was written by me. So they didn't. I said no, I wasn't working with them anymore, and then it went quiet anyway. I think their realization that I'd already done that is what attracted them to me in the first place, because I'd done the job that they wanted just for somebody else.
That's quite pragmatic then. Yes, we know he can do it.
I think they were worried that I would then undo the work I did for them and go back to that, which doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. We're professionals, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. If I did that, then everyone would talk about it and I wouldn't have any customers ever again.
Absolutely.
My opinion on that was it was a bit petty, really, and they didn't know what they wanted other than me to get them to the position that I'd already got. But in the main, no, that doesn't really happen. The industry is so wide that one day I can be working on a white paper for somebody about Microsoft Teams. The next I might be writing a blog post about SharePoint, and then I'll be writing some website copy for a Zoom integration, something like that. And they're all in the same industry, but they're all very different topics and they're all very different formats as well.
Yeah. And as you say, hopefully, we're all sort of grown-ups about this thing, that if maybe it's more of an employer mindset that they felt like they had to headhunt you away from a competitor or something and then buy your loyalty.
Yeah. I have had somebody that if they would approach me today, I wouldn't have accepted their request for a call anyway. I'd have learned to have filtered them out better, kind of qualified them as not my ideal customer. They wanted me to sign an NDA it was an agency. They wanted me to sign an NDA without me even knowing who the end client was, so that the end client couldn't come to me directly, because then they would obviously cut themselves out. They wouldn't take their profit and the customer would use me anyway. I said no because it all felt a bit shady, but after half an hour of banging my head against a wall on the call saying, look, I can't say yes unless I know who it is, because I don't know if I'm
already be working with them.
Right? I might already be working with them, yeah. As it transpires, 3 months later, they come to me direct and said they were trying to get to me via this agency. So it was just a massive waste of time using this.
The agency lost the business.
The agency lost the business, and I was completely full up at the time anyway. So I said, no, I can't do it yet. I can do it in 3-4 months. So they got their, I guess, second choice. I don't know if they went back to the agency or what happened, but it was a bit of a peculiar situation to be in, really. And it was kind of it's the employer mindset, but with a middleman, I guess.
Yeah, that's even more weird and awkward, isn't it? I think but this is bound to happen when you go deep into a niche, doesn't it? I had a situation where a client I've been working with a while sent me a brief for an interesting piece of content, and they knew it was right in my wheelhouse. And they said, these are the 3 articles ranking top at the moment that we want to beat. And I had to go back to them and say, do you realize that I wrote 2 of these? Because one was ghostwritten, and they knew I'd work for one of the competitors. But it was like, okay, I'm happy to have a shot. You're paying me now. We'll try and outrank those. But it was a bit of a weird situation that I felt like you're pitting me against myself here.
Yeah, I've never been in that situation, but I've had it happen accidentally, where I've written something and it just so happened to rank for something else that another client was paying me for. And it wasn't until I was looking through a report and I went, oh, I've lost that ranking position. Who's written that? And it was me. And it was for another client. It wasn't intentional. I wasn't directly trying to rank for that key phrase. It just happened. But at the time, there was enough trust between both clients, and I explained that it was accidental, and they were both fine with it. We weren't there weren't direct competition. It was different technologies, despite being in the same industry, and everyone was grown-ups about it, like you said.
That's the best possible outcome, isn't it? And and just trying to avoid those agencies that try and get you to sign the non-competes, and that, so somebody put one in front of me once that you wouldn't work for anybody else in the same industry. Well, it's like, that's my niche. So,
yeah, that's why you've come to me, right?
Yeah. So you're asking me to sign away my entire career? I don't think so. But this is all.
Yeah, I assume you didn't sign that.
No, didn't sign that one, and not currently working with any agencies at all, because those kind of things tended to keep popping up, and it's just easier to go to work directly with clients. But having said that, I noticed that you definitely describe yourself as a solopreneur, but you do have an embryonic agency growing. So how's that going? And are you just collaborating with other freelancers, or are you empire building?
Yeah, embryonic agency. Maybe I'll brand myself as that. So one of my longest serving customer, the CEO who pays the bills, suggested that I could make a lot of money by opening an agency in my industry. So I thought, you know what, that sounds like a very good idea. He floated some numbers, said, this is what I think you could realistically be earning. And I couldn't not explore the option. Very quickly, I realized that I didn't want to manage other people. And I went freelance in the first place because I enjoyed the free element of being a freelancer. I could do whatever I want, whenever I wanted, and people would pay me, right?
Yes.
So it very quickly became the case that I had a bunch of really good people that could do things that I'm not very good at. So things like web analytics and website copywriting and graphic design, things I'm not very good at and don't want to do. I want to do the more narrative content that you mentioned earlier. And rather than actively trying to go and fill their time by selling more than I can deliver, if I happen to have, it's a very passive approach, I guess. If I happen to have so much work that I need to outsource it, I now have a very small group of trusted freelancers who run their own businesses in their own right. And I might say, hey, could you do a graphic for this white paper I'm working on?
Perfect.
It's as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
It's not a fully fledged marketing agency. It's just a small group that I lean on to do other bits. But I'm not actively marketing those extra bits because I don't want to do them, really. And I don't want to be managing subcontractors. I don't want to do the accounting. I want to create content strategies. I want to write really long form white papers about subjects that I'm deeply passionate about, rather than paying bills.
Absolutely. And writing a long form white paper, you need to be able to concentrate 100% on that white paper. You can't be like managing a team and dealing with admin and
there's also the element of people coming to me because they know I'm good at something, or I'm superior in a craft compared to a generalist in my specific industry. And I felt like I would degrade that almost if I then said, well, actually, you've come to me for that reason, but I'm going to get somebody else to do it. That didn't feel like a growth strategy for me. The growth strategy for me felt like I should continue delivering high quality content, and more people will keep coming to me.
Yes.
And I think I made that decision very quickly, and it was definitely the right decision to make.
Yeah, no, it sounds like the perfect arrangement, that you have a series of trusted collaborators that you can, because sometimes people do want the visual side of the white paper as well and things like that. I mean, I know that I can faff around in Canva for an hour and come up with something that looks like a 12-year-old did it, or I could just work with somebody I trust to do a good job in the first place, and I'll concentrate on the words. We'll keep
when it comes to outsourcing, I'd rather have someone I could say, yes, this person is very good at that thing you've asked me to do, and go do it through them, rather than me trying to make a markup on it or saying no.
Yeah,
really, because if you start saying no, then customers will assume you're going to say no to everything, which if they're the wrong customer, that's fine. If you want me to write about something I've got no clue about, I'm going to say no and you're not going to come back, and that's absolutely fine. To me, that's a productive way of growing my freelance business. But if it's someone who I've done a white paper for, and use the example, they want me to format it and turn it into something, and that's a deal breaker, they want to do the entire package, rather than me hunting on Fiverr for somebody I've never used before, I would like to say, actually, Molly, can you do this within this time frame? Yes, great. We'll do it as a co-project. It'd be great.
Yeah.
And it always turns out brilliant.
And you don't have to worry about the quality of the work. You don't have to project manage it and be an agency. Yeah. Yes, I mean, it's something that obviously I've thought about in terms of how do we grow, how do we improve and become more professional, how do we make more money at the end of the day. But I agree with you, and particularly with writing or anything creative, really, they're hiring you for your expertise and reputation. The minute you start outsourcing, you have less control over the quality. You might get sucked into, I mean, I know I love writing, but I hate editing. So why would I want to do more of that?
I'm the opposite, to the point where if I was an editor for my marketing agency, I think I'd be okay with it. If I wrote the brief, if I handed it over to a writer and then got it back, edited it to something that I could hand over to the customer and say, look, it started with me, it ended with me, somebody did the bits in the middle. And I worked like that for a little while, and 2 of my customers use me as kind of the blog editor, and my responsibility is to hire other freelancers and work like that. And I really enjoy that. But that becomes a process where I'm losing profit by outsourcing the words effectively. Yes. And in the time that it's taken me to produce a brief and edit the final product, could I have just written it myself? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes, because I'm so deeply embedded within this industry.
Yeah.
And nobody else really is going to do as good a job is not the right phrase, but what I expect.
Yeah, and what the client expects then if they're hiring you. That makes complete sense. And it's so you've chosen to grow in other ways and just deepen that professionalism and that niche and the service that you provide. And something else you've diversified into this year, you've published your first book to help other people do exactly the same. So tell me about that. What was the motivation behind The Autonomous Freelancer?
The motivation was to finally write a book. Like I said, I've always enjoyed creative writing and just writing in general. I've probably started 7, 8 different books and got to chapter 3 and gone, well, this is no good. This is not what I should be doing. I thought long and hard about what could I write a book on that people would genuinely find useful, will be of a value high enough that I could make some money from it, but also something that didn't take up so much of my time that I was leaving potential billable time on the table. So if I wanted it to be a spare time project. So if I finished at 2 because I got my blog post done early that day, I would go to the coffee shop and start writing that book. If I had nothing to do on a Saturday morning, I'd go sit outside and work on it for a little bit, etc., etc. I did a lot of it in a brewery when it was raining. British summer, when it rains.
Oh, so that's how you got it done quickly then.
I would go and I would do something productive rather than, I'm not somebody who can just sit at home and watch Netflix. I'd rather be doing something. It doesn't have to be work related, but I'd rather be doing something. And the rain kind of restricts that. So I'd got to the point in my career where I was building a small audience on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Medium, and various other places. And it became clear that maybe 25% of my audience followed me for industry stuff. And the rest were maybe 70 of that 75% left were freelancers that were tagging along to learn things, to cheer me on. And I thought, this could be outside of my niche where I'm an industry expert, but that doesn't really need a book. This could be the one thing that I'm rather good at, and I could turn into a book that people would want to read and want to pay to read. So it kind of all came together very quickly. I approached it as if I would a blog post, to be honest. I wrote a brief and thought, that kind of makes sense. We'll see how that goes. And maybe, I think it was 36 sessions worth of writing. Some were half an hour, some were 4 hours, just when I had spare pockets of time. It all came together, edited it nicely. Publishing was a nightmare, but we shan't talk about that. And I thought it would be a great it'd be a great income stream that diversified what I do. It'd be a passive income stream. I'd always wanted to have a product. And the year before I'd made a blogging course, and I got the bug really a little bit for making products. As I saw the sales come in from online course, I thought, well, actually it's a Saturday and I've earned £300. That's pretty good, right? That's a really nice, I guess it builds a pot for potential days off if I'm sick as a freelancer, or if there's one day where I don't have any client work to do, I can say, well, at least I've got this pocket of passive income that kind of substitutes in there if I ever have a big gap. And most of what I do is about building potential free time into my life so that my work-life balance is heavily swayed in favor of life.
Yeah, well, that's all any of us want at the end of the day, isn't it? The trouble is a lot of us end up doing that by getting very good at what we exchange time for money for. So we exchange that for even more money, and then trying to take time out of that to create a unique piece of content and offer it to the world on a, see if you like this basis, like a book, is much more difficult. So congratulations, first of all, because
thank you very much.
A huge achievement actually creating and putting something out into the world like that. I know that one of the main things I took from the book was I've seen a lot of books on this is how to be a content marketer, this is how to be a writer, and those things are incredibly hard to if somebody can't write, there's no course, there's no book in the world that can teach them. But what you got to the heart of was that mindset of it's a business, I'm providing professional service in a B2B environment. What does that look like? What am I offering to my clients? And if I can get that right, that gives me the lifestyle that I want.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of books on how to be a freelancer, and I didn't want to write that. I'd read them all either during the course of my career as a freelancer or as kind of pre-reading for something I was going to write. I wanted it to be something where I could add genuine value rather than just laying out, you need to go and buy a laptop, you need to find a working space, which are the bones of being a freelancer, yes. But my audience, I think, is people that are already aware of this. They're not doing it for the first time. It's not their first job. They have an established freelance business, whether they know it's a business or not. It might be part-time, it might be once a month, it might be when they have free time, it might be full-time, it might be too much time and they need to get some time back. And I wanted to kind of cater that audience rather than beginner freelancers, because my career went from earning very good money as a full-time employee to having a bit of side income as some freelance work was coming in, to then when I first went freelance, my day rate I just took from what I earned as a full-time employee, which is absolutely the wrong mentality to take. But I didn't know any different at the time because, okay, I read the beginners how to be a freelancer, but nobody had published anything on how to be a successful freelancer from day one, which, looking back, why was I not charging the rate that I was charging then? Why was I not using project-based pricing? Why was I undervaluing myself just because I had a full-time job previously, even though it was a very well-paid full-time job? The value for all of my knowledge and all of my skills that I've gained over those last 10 years were worth more than what I was being paid a salary for at that time.
Yeah.
And then there's the obvious side of any customers, they're not paying me a pension, they're not paying me any dental, there's no benefits. Using a freelancer is not just using that particular skill set and craft. It's freeing up a space in that business's payment cycle, right? There's a gap. And
absolutely, yeah.
Who says that you should not fit into that gap for what you're worth rather than just what you were worth as a full-time employee?
Yes, and you're bringing them that precise jigsaw fit of the value and the output that they need at that time. They're not having to commit to you with a contract with all the on costs of recruitment and retention and onboarding.
Those are the hidden costs that freelancers are unaware of sometimes, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you've always been freelance, you're unaware of how long and how expensive it is to hire somebody.
Yes.
There might be an agency that you pay £10,000 for, and then the person starts and they're no good.
Yeah, so they quit in 6 months.
It's a complete risk. Complete risk. One role I had. I know the company were using a prestigious recruitment company, and I don't know how much it cost, but it was well known that it costs a lot of money to use this particular recruitment agency. They found me on LinkedIn, put me forward for a job. I accepted it because the money was really good. About 3 months in, I wasn't really doing anything. So I phoned the recruitment consultant back and said, hey, look, this probably isn't for me because I can't sit here and pretend to be busy all day. In fact, I started my own blog then on productivity and remote work and things like that, because I was sat in an office because I had to go into an office and didn't have any work to do. So my looking busy was actually doing stuff to further my own career. So after 6 months, I did leave. So it cost that company whatever it was for the recruitment fee. It cost them my salary for 6 months, and then they had to do it all over again.
It's terrifying. But I've been on the other side of that back in corporate life, and you'd have to trust an agency so much with this person, and you have a couple of interviews and then you've got to make them an offer. It's terrifying. Whereas if you're hiring a freelancer, you can agree on the smallest viable project that works for you both to see if you're a fit, and you pay them for that project. And if you go on to then work together for the next 5 years, fantastic. If not, then you both walk away. Everybody's absolutely fine.
Especially in startups as well, or smaller businesses that don't have that seemingly never-ending business. The company I was working for at the time, I think, turns over 80 billion. So it was a small drop in the ocean, but in the grand scheme of things, I probably didn't matter that much as a line item. But
that manager's got a budget,
cost
though.
of living crisis. Now they wish they had that money, right? But yeah, I think filling that gap with your expertise and your craft is money well spent, right? And you deserve to be compensated appropriately for it.
Definitely. And hopefully, it is a trend we're seeing more of now. Now I've been writing quite a lot about blended teams and fractional execs, and just the fact that the tools that you specialize in writing about make it so easy to form those instant deep collaborations for a time-limited period with anyone on the planet, never mind whether they can commute to your office and sit there and do nothing. We have so much better ways of doing this now that's got to be better for both sides. And I think the other thing is there's so much talent now out of the workforce, because particularly in tech, because of all the layoffs that have sadly hit within the last 12 months, there's an awful lot of people out there who maybe don't want to go back into that all-in relationship anymore either if they've been burned badly by it. there's so much talent waiting in the wings for freelancers, and some of those will collaborate and form new startups, but others, they can add so much value if they can flip into this autonomous mindset.
Yeah, you make a good point as well about the risk of being employed is almost the same as the risk of being a freelancer, right? You might not renew your contract. You might not get another project from that particular customer. The same as one of my customers laid off their entire marketing team pretty much, to the point where I checked my email on Monday morning, having heard that they'd made some layoffs on Friday afternoon, emailed the person to say, "Hi, hope you're okay, because I heard lots of your team had gone," and my email bounced back because they disappeared. And I wrote about it in my book, like, what do you do at that point as a freelancer? But things like that have prepared me, and other freelancers have the edge, I guess, over employed people, of preparing for that inevitable moment when the customer says, "Hey, you know what? I haven't got any more work for you." Yeah. And it's not necessarily a reflection on you. It's just they haven't got anything else for you to do. And that happens, right?
Oh, yeah.
And freelancers that build a steady pipeline, build a personal brand, know that the next piece of work is going to come, literally knocking out the door, because you've put in that time up front to make sure that people know who you are, what you're all about, and how great you are.
Yeah, and you've got a network you can turn to if they don't come knocking.
Yeah.
You've already got that built out. And also, that bounced email isn't likely to be 100% of your income at any one time if you're a diversified freelancer.
That's something I've been. So I was on a call with what's the right phrases? I guess they are startup founders. Maybe they're rolling out a new freelance marketplace platform type thing, the kind of thing that I despise, because I assume they're all like Upwork and Fiverr and don't pay you correctly.
What's your hourly rate?
Or billing per minute.
Yeah.
They were talking to me about what I wanted to do next with my freelance business. How much money did I want to earn? How did I want to grow it? And my answer was, actually, I just want more of the same, because I enjoy my job so much. I enjoy my work-life balance. I don't want to change anything. There's nothing else I'm striving for, like in terms of more. I don't need any more. But what I would like to do, and this definitely wasn't the answer they're expecting, but was to diversify where my clients come from. So I'm less reliant on one customer than another. And I wasn't particularly bad at it anyway. Just naturally, organically, it happened without me doing anything. I've got a group of customers. One pays me for a retainer, so it's nice to have a retainer on your workbook. One pays me for one big project at a time. I've got a handful of customers that pay me a smaller amount at a time for lots of different things. So it was fairly diverse anyway, but I wanted to make it even more diverse in case layoffs happen. So even the biggest companies, Microsoft, Zoom, Cisco, all made layoffs, and they're all in my industry, right? So I was very aware that I could probably tweak that a little bit. And on my invoicing software, my accounting software, Free Agent, it pops up to say, "Well done, you've diversified your income more than 6 months ago," which was nice to have.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
I was doing it kind of subconsciously.
Yeah.
And then it popped up and it said, "Hey, you've done it." I was like, "Oh, great. Well, I've achieved that." And I went back to the question they asked me on that call: what do I want to achieve next? What do I want more of? And the answer is more of the same, really. And if I can factor in the time to write a book, do a course, something like that, not even make a course, but do somebody else's course and continue learning, then I know that I'm going to continue growing as a person, I guess, more than a business.
That's fantastic. And I think that's a brilliant note on which to wrap up, because for so many people who we know despise their work or just are bored by their work and they're not engaged and they're not enjoying it and would answer that question so differently and they would rather not do it at all, I think you're basically living the dream. You've got the work that you love.
I'm living my dream, right?
Right.
If you asked me 5 years ago, what did I want my work day to look like? It's exactly where it is now. I didn't know it at the time, but this is what I wanted, right? The only thing I would change, like I said earlier, is I wish it didn't rain as much in the summer.
Oh, well, you see, your work's location independent. You don't have to do it in the UK.
Yeah. My dogs don't travel very well, so that's the only thing tying me down.
Okay, yes. Well, we'll have our dependents weigh us down, definitely. I've just published a 5,000 word paper on digital nomad visas. That's on my LinkedIn profile if you want to go and dream about desert islands. And
Yep, I should check that out.
I don't know if they have pet visas as well, though. It might get complicated. But we do have so many possibilities now. Very quickly, what's the best place for people to learn more if they're intrigued about your book, your work in UC? Where's the best place to connect with you, Dom?
So you can get my book at theautonomousfreelancer.com. You can choose from the paperback, or you can buy the ebook version. If you're in a country outside of the UK or the US, you will benefit from the pay parity scaling, which is quite nice. That's why I wanted to launch an ebook as well. If not, find me on Twitter. I'm at Dom Kent, and LinkedIn, I'm Dominic Kent. There's not many of me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being part of the Future is Freelance.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to the Future is Freelance podcast. We appreciate your time and attention in a busy world and your busy life. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a fellow freelancer. Help us grow this movement of independent entrepreneurs. If you rate and review The Future is Freelance in whatever app you're listening to this right now, or over at futureisfreelance.xyz, then that will help spread the word and help us reach more people who need to hear this message and join the conversation. Together, we can change the world and make sure the future is freelance. This is Maya Middlemiss wishing you success and happiness in your enterprise until our next episode.